When I woke up that morning, I never would have imagined how the day was going to end. But that's what so many of the days with Jesus were like. I should have been used to it. My name is Bartholomew, or you can call me Nathaniel. I go by both. You see, it's not uncommon for my people to have both a Hebrew name and a Greek name. But me, I have two Hebrew names. Nathaniel is my given name, and Bartholomew means son of Ptolemy, so it's more like what you would call a last name, I guess. So people call me both, which is fine by me. I don't really care. Oh, I guess that's a different story. You wanted to hear about the day that Jesus fed so many people that I thought it was impossible. The day started with a lot of celebration. It was the day that we all returned from our travels and joined together with our teacher again. Jesus had sent us out into the world 2 by 2 in order to teach and cast out demons and cure the sick. Now, Philip and I had chosen to go together because we go way back, long before either of us met Jesus. In fact, it was Philip who introduced me to this ragtag group in the first place. I remember he found me that day and he said, "We have found the one that Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Now, I didn't think that anything good could come out of Nazareth, and I told him so. But Philip said, "Oh, right. Loaves and fishes. You want to hear the loaves and fishes story?" Anyways, Philip and I had gone out together, and we certainly had lots to tell the others, and we were really eager to hear their stories again, too. So when we arrived back in town, Jesus took one look at us, and instead of saying, "Welcome back," he said, "You look exhausted, and you've lost weight. Have you been looking after yourselves while you've been out there?" What a welcome, right? The work we had been doing was important, and there were so many people coming at all hours of the day and night. Of course, we skipped a meal here or there, and we only got a little bit of sleep. Wasn't that what this was all about? But as the others arrived, we realized that we weren't the only ones looking a little worse for wear. When the last group of 2 came through the door, Jesus looked around at us all and he said with authority, "All right, that's it. We're going away for a while. You all need to get some meat back on your bones and have a good week of sleep. Go, get up. Let's go." And so we went. Walking down to the seaside, we were so tired, we didn't even notice the group of people gathering around us or hear their plans to meet us on the other side of the lake. We just followed Jesus, putting one foot in front of the other, in front of the other, until we found our places in the boat. But when we got to the other side, I will admit there was a collective groan when we saw the crowds waiting for us. Except for Jesus. He just smiled, got out of the boat, and having compassion for them, he started to teach. And teach. And teach some more. Eventually, it got late in the afternoon, and my stomach was starting to growl with hunger. I looked around and I suddenly realized just how far away from town we were, and just how big the crowd was. How were we going to feed all of these people? So, catching Philip's eye, I motioned to the edge of the crowd, and we snuck away so we could talk. Turns out he was getting hungry too, so we caught the eye of some of the other disciples and got a little group chat going. We decided that someone was going to have to bring Jesus' attention to the problem and suggest that he stop teaching and send the crowds away to find their own supper. He could always tell them to come back in the morning, but it just wasn't reasonable to assume that this could go on all night. We needed food and sleep. That's how this had all started in the first place. Anyways, we decided that there was safety in numbers, so we went out as a group and stood just off to the side of Jesus, trying to catch his attention. Obviously, we weren't very subtle about it because he stopped in the middle of his teaching and told everyone to hold that thought. I think my disciples need me. Oops. Anyway, when he came over, we launched into our rehearsed lines about the hour of the day and the time it would take everyone to get back to their villages. We were sure we were on the right footing here, but Jesus surprised us by telling us to give them something to eat. Us? Jesus, did you see enough bread to feed 5,000 men, let alone women and children, with us in the boat when we were coming across the lake? Or do you want us to go and buy it? Because the communal purse that we carry is not nearly filled with enough coins for that. Are you insane, Jesus? But as if he knew what he was going to do all along, which, if I'm being honest, he probably did, he told us to find out how much food we had and bring it back to him. Confused by our teacher, but then again, that wasn't a new feeling, we started digging in our bags. A few of our group found small loaves of bread, and Peter, the fisherman, brought out 2 fish he'd been saving. That wasn't enough to feed even the 12 of us, never mind that full crowd. What was Jesus up to? But, like the good disciples that we were, we took it back to Jesus, expecting him to laugh and say something to teach us a lesson, and then dismiss the crowd. Boy, were we wrong. Telling us to organize the crowd into groups of 50s and 100, we were supposed to have everyone sit down. Sit down? No, 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 no. I wanted them to get up and start walking back to town. Why were we getting them to sit down? But then Jesus just started giving thanks for the meager offering that we had found in our bags and started breaking it up. And the rest? Well, the rest is still a mystery to me. I really don't know what happened next. Every time we broke the bread and the fish and gave it to a person, it seemed as if we had the same amount in our hands still. And then people started sharing their food too. Out came other small loaves and fish and olives and cheese that people had been saving. It too seemed to start to multiply, and before we knew it, everyone was full, and there was even more left over. Each of us disciples picked up a full basket of pieces of food that no one could eat because we were all so stuffed. I really don't know what happened, but boy, was it miraculous. Later that night, once everyone had gone home and we had finally made it to the deserted place that Jesus had been trying to take us to begin with, we sat around the fire and tried to make sense of what we'd seen. As we debated exactly what had happened and how, Jesus just sighed. You're missing the point, he told us that night. It's not about how the miracle happened. It's that people were fed, both spiritually and physically. I love them just as much as I love you, and I want you all to be well. Sometimes that means getting away for a while, like we're doing now. And sometimes that means having compassion on people who have walked a long way to see us and hear me preach. And sometimes it's just making sure that people have food for their bodies too. I'm not always going to be here to do the miracles for you. You're going to have to learn to do this for yourselves and others. I remember thinking and getting sidetracked when he said, not here. What did he mean by that? We had just started our ministry. Where was he going to go? It wasn't until much later that I realized what he meant by that, because after Pentecost, when the Spirit came and we started preaching and gathering people in a whole new way, we soon figured out that we were way out of our league and we missed him so much. Oh my goodness, I wished that we could sit around that fire with him. Oh, right. You want to hear the loaves and fishes? I promise, I'm almost done. Sometimes, Jesus taught us that night, It's about making sure that everyone has what they need to survive. For some, that will be the basics of bread and fish and rest. For others, it will be teaching and growth in their spirit. But it all works best when we work together. That's a lesson that I've never forgotten, and I hope it's one that you'll remember too. Love people as Jesus did. Give them food and rest, both physical and spiritual. Because that's our job now, now that he's not here with us in the same way. And I know it's a big job. It was a big job back then when there was more than 5,000 people in the crowd, and it's a big job now. But I have no doubt that together we can do it.